Hello and welcome back to the Being Grounded podcast. We're on a mission to help you redefine success, become the best version of yourself, and find peace in this fast-paced world. Hi, my name is Fleur.
And hi, my name is Molly.
And today is the final episode to our 3-part 2026 reset series, where we're going to be sharing the follow-through formula to stay consistent all year round. As you know, January is the month of focus, but more than 90% of people drop off from their goals due to losing that motivation towards the end of the month. So we're going to be splitting this episode into 4 sections where we're going to be talking about why consistency matters, the follow-through formula you can use to create consistency in your life, mindset shifts for long-term consistency, and practical tips you can start today to achieve your goals this year. So without further ado, let's get straight into the episode.
Oh, I'm really excited to talk about this actually, because I feel like consistency is one of those things which kind of gets put on the back burner. I feel like everyone wants to talk about how to set goals and habits and stuff like this, but no one really talks about why it matters and why it's actually very important. And I think it's very interesting to look at why consistency matters so much, and sometimes why it matters more than motivation. I think that motivation, I've said this so many times, motivation is very temporary. Motivation is a very temporary emotion. It comes and goes when it pleases. And if we all relied on motivation, imagine if successful business owners, if content creators, if anyone who wants to create a habit, it doesn't even have to be someone within the entrepreneurial space. It could be someone who is trying to get better at going to the gym. It could be someone who is trying to be consistent in a relationship. Imagine if these people relied solely on motivation. They would not get anywhere, because it is not about motivation. It's about consistency, and it's about showing up, and it's about actually incorporating discipline. Discipline is what gets you places. Discipline is what gets shit done. Motivation doesn't do that. Motivation helps you start. Motivation is what encourages you to build the vision boards. Motivation is what encourages you to set the goal and set out on that journey. But what actually leads to you successfully staying consistent with it is discipline. To me and to a lot of people, consistency is about planting seeds, For example, when you plant a seed, it's not going to be a single burst, a single drop of water that will grow that seed, but it's going to be watering it every single day, which is going to grow the seed. Hence why I've always killed plants, because I'm not consistent with watering it. Genuinely, I am trying to get a lot more better at consistency, because I think it's one of my biggest weaknesses. And this is why, for me personally, I'm not very good at consistency, and it's something that I really want to work on in the new year. And I think there's many different ways you can go about being consistent. It's important that you make sure that you see you falling off of the habit, you falling off of it, and you not being consistent as a chance to start again, not as you failing. That is exactly how you are going to become consistent. And again, I think I might have talked about this in previous episodes, but one thing which I have really observed just from trial and error, just from trying out new routines and trying out new habits and trying to stick at them, is I'm very good at sticking to it for a week, then falling off of it for a few days, but picking myself back up. And I realized the reason as to why I fall off the habit, or I fall off of the routine, or I just fall off being consistent with it, is because I start to find it a bit boring, and I start to find it a little bit dull, As periods of your life change, as you go through new hormonal changes and new seasons and new periods of life, naturally things that you once found enjoyment in, things that you once were consistent in, aren't going to be consistent in anymore. And that's okay. It's about finding a new approach to it. Think about, what does consistency look like to you? To me, consistency looks like knowing that, when I start going to the gym a lot more in January, because again, I'm not starting afresh, I'm picking back up where I left off. When I start going in January, I know after about a week, after the motivation has worn off, it is going to be a struggle to get me up. It is going to be an actual, it's going to be trying to get a kid up for school. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be really tough and really hard, and I know that I probably will fall off of it for a week or maybe a few days or however long it will be, but I know that I can get myself back up, and I know I can get myself back out of that rut. That is consistency. Consistency is showing up for yourself no matter what. Consistency is making sure you show up for yourself even when you don't feel like it, not because you feel you have to, because you want to be there for yourself and because you want to prove to yourself that okay, I have fallen off, but I'm going to get myself back up. That is consistency.
I love that. Preach.
I don't even know where that came from. Oh my god.
That's exactly how it is,
like,
though, as an influencer, or I don't know, self-development YouTuber.
It just comes out.
It just comes out. You have like your moments, and I feel like it's important for people to be able to hear that. So that leads me on to the second section, which is all about the follow through formula. So I've got 5 different hacks which I can share with you. The first one being to anchor your habits to your existing routine, which is also known as habit stacking. So this is when you link your new habits to things that you already do daily. So for example, if you want to look at a mood board that you've made, then you can do it while you're brushing your teeth. Or if you make a coffee in the morning, then you can make the coffee and journal at the same time. It's like linking something that you know you already do to something new that you have been wanting to do but you've not had the chance to do. The second tip is to set realistic, measurable goals, also known as SMART goals. And we go more into this in the blueprint episode we filmed, which was the first episode of the Reset series. So definitely go and check that out. But instead of saying I'll work out more, you would say I'll do 20 minutes of movement 4 times a week, because these small wins will build up momentum and it will help you to achieve the goals that you want to achieve down the line. The third hack is to track your progress visually, whether this is a habit tracker, a calendar, sticky notes, even like a template that you make where you can like put up little stickers once you've done it. Seeing your progress daily gives your brain that dopamine hit. So I've chosen my habits that I want to do every single morning and every single evening, and I've downloaded a habit app, and I'm going to be putting all of my habits into the app so that I know, okay, like I can check off all of my habits in the morning and make sure they are all sorted out. So I think that will help me a lot, because when you can like tick something off and you know you've done it, you feel like you can do anything with the rest of your day. The fourth tip is to have accountability systems. So whether this is telling a friend or sharing your updates on social media, or even just keeping yourself accountable to your past version of yourself and journaling about it, accountability is really important because it increases follow through dramatically, and it shows that when you have other people around you who also have the same goal as you, and you can both like equally work towards that goal together, you can build up that motivation and that discipline. A good example of this is having a gym buddy. So I don't actually have one right now, but when I was at university, I did have a friend who I used to go to the gym with sometimes, and sometimes we would do the same workout and we would just like follow what one another did at the gym, or sometimes we did completely different workouts, but we just went to the gym together. We would do classes together, and honestly, it was so helpful for me, specifically because she'd gone to the gym much longer than I had, and she was a lot more wiser when it came to things like form and specific ways that you should be doing things. She taught me so many things that I now follow through with at the gym when I'm alone now. So I do think having an accountability buddy is really helpful. And then the last tip is to build flexibility and not be so rigid with your structure and your routine. Life happens, and the formula doesn't have to be perfect. It's something that you can adapt to. If you miss a day, that doesn't mean that you have to then quit. You just adjust, you learn, and you continue. I think this is so important because whenever I would like skip a day from the gym, or I would fall back on one of my habits, I would automatically assume that I was failing and that I just had to like start all over again. But that's not how life works. Like, you are going to have your days where you do fall backwards, and it's how you treat those days and how you then get yourself back up on your feet and get yourself back up standing and fighting again that matters, and that's what's going to help you down the line. So just understanding that being consistent and being disciplined doesn't mean being perfect every single day, because you're a human being, you're not a robot, and perfection doesn't exist. And allowing yourself to have your down days, but then getting yourself back up and getting yourself back to being that strong version of you again, to get back onto focusing on your goals.
That is so insightful and so interesting, and I feel like when you follow those particular advices that Flair just gave, you're gonna see massive improvement. I'm not just trying to like sell you, you know, people are like, once you buy my course you're gonna like have the best life ever, but it's true with these sort of things, because throughout life you do naturally just find what works for you. You know, you find what kind of like helps you to be more consistent. You know, for example, whether that be like Flair said, the setting realistic goals, or being more flexible with yourself. You know, when you find the thing that ticks for you, it naturally all just falls into place, and you'll kind of find it a lot less stressful. I think that's probably why a lot of people also fall off their goals, is not because they're like scared they're not going to be consistent, and because they're afraid that they're not going to be consistent like other people can. And you know, one thing which I want to say has actually really helped me be more consistent with certain things, and it's going to make me sound a little bit crazy, but I don't care because it could actually help someone, because it helps me, is I imagine taking myself outside of my body and imagining I am like a movie character, or like I'm a puppet, or just something that isn't got like feelings and hasn't got a mind, hasn't got this, hasn't got that. They're just purely a physical inanimate being that you can like control and tell what to do and stuff like this. And sometimes I view myself as that, and I say to myself like, okay, she's gonna get up, she's gonna walk into her bathroom, clean her teeth, she's gonna walk back into her room, put on her gym clothes, go downstairs, eat a banana, then go to the gym. Like, when I almost view it as like a step-by-step playbook of like a script, an acting script, this is how the movie goes, the morning or the day. Or it doesn't even have to be like, I feel like I'm talking about consistency in terms of gym, because it's an easier way for me to like describe or explain consistency. Of course, it could be of anything, you know. It could be showing up in your business ventures. It could be showing up in your entrepreneurial ventures, you know, like the podcast. Like if you've got a podcast, you know, you have to be consistent with it in order for it to grow. It could be anything that requires hard work, anything that requires discipline, anything that requires strength to keep it going is what, and ultimately, what it means to be consistent. You know, anything that's easy doesn't require consistency. If podcasts, if businesses, if going to the gym was easy, it would not require you to be consistent. It would just naturally come to you. So imagining myself outside of my body and imagining myself as like, like I said, almost like a puppet or a movie character really helps. So that's one little recommendation. That leads us very nicely on to the next section, which is all about mindset shifts, which do help with long-term consistency. So the next one is to focus on identity, not outcome. This, oh my god, I could talk about this for hours. Becoming consistent in something you want to become consistent in requires an identity shift. It doesn't require you to focus on the outcome. You right now, you at the present moment doesn't have that thing because you aren't in the identity of the person who has that thing, if that makes sense. In order for you to become the successful business owner, you will not become the successful business owner as you now, because you are not being consistent and you are not doing all of the work. You have not done anything that requires a successful business. Therefore, you have to start associating yourself with a business owner as a business owner. Doing content creation, you are a business owner because your social media platforms are assets. They are a business in a different type of way to a coffee shop, right? But it's still a business in a different way. So therefore, you have to identify and you have to align yourself to the version of yourself that is a content creator or is said thing. So for example, if I set up a business and I want to become successful at it, instead of me thinking, oh, like I'd love to have a successful business, you know, I'd love to do this, or I want to do more of this, start saying, I am this. I am a successful business owner. And I become so much more confident in saying, I am a content creator. You know, people ask me nowadays, oh, like, so what do you do? I say I do content creation. And it makes me, at first it's a bit scary because I think like, oh my God, they're going to look at my platforms and realize I have like 300 subscribers. But at the end of the day, I am still a content creator because what do? I create content. Therefore, I'm a content creator. Doesn't matter if you have 1 subscriber or you have 1 million subscribers, you are still a content creator. Start saying what you are shamelessly. Your habits are tied to who you are. When your habits are tied to who you are, consistency will feel natural. When your habits are tied to the version of yourself that has all of the things you want to have, consistency will feel natural. I always find it really helpful to literally draw out a stick figure on a piece of paper. Get a blank piece of paper, draw a stick figure, write down the different attributes of this person. This person is your highest self. The person is the highest version of yourself with all of the things that you want. That could be, I've done one quite semi-recently, and on it I put, she does Pilates, she goes swimming, and I write down the whole lifestyle, her whole career, everything of this person. And then naturally you just will find habits, and naturally the habits of the things that that person has or does, you will start to do. Next of all is celebrate your small wins. Every single step you make is a progress, and start giving yourself credit. When I hit 300 subscribers the other day, I was like, oh my god, like I'm so happy. Of course I knew it was coming. I didn't get too excited because it's kind of like, I just knew it was going to happen anyway. Of course, like the only way you go up is up. Like I know I'm only ever going to go up. Of course you lose subscribers, but I was in my head, I had this like really strong mentality: for every subscriber lost, I gain 2 more. For every 2 subscribers lost, I gain 4 more. And it works. When I had that mentality, the next day I'll go on my YouTube and I'll literally have like, I don't know, 304, when the day before I had 298 or something. And it's because in my head, what I do is I know that I'm going to get the subscribers. But celebrating the small win is so key, because it also trains yourself to appreciate yourself more, appreciate your dedication, appreciate your hard work. Because at the end of the day, human beings thrive off of dopamine and off of gratification. That's what human beings thrive off of. So therefore, you need to gratify yourself. You need to tell yourself like, yeah, well done. You know, you need to like celebrate the small wins, because that is how you're going to keep on going. That is going to be your kick of motivation. Also, reframe your setbacks. Imagine if every single person who had a setback, every single person who like quote unquote failed, because there's no such thing as failure, it's just a lesson. If the most successful people viewed their quote unquote failures, because bear in mind there's no such thing as failure, it's just lessons, but if they viewed their quote unquote failures as, that's it, end of the world, I'm never going to be successful ever again, do you think they would have half the wealth, half the success, half of the amount of like of lessons, and half the amount of just like aura that's the best way I can put it, aura that they have now? No, they wouldn't, because they would have viewed their failure as like, that's it, I'm done, I'm never gonna win again. But no, you have to start viewing your setbacks and start viewing them as like data. See them as data, not as failure. Ask yourself, okay, based on this data, what can I do to improve? For example, with my YouTube videos, I will look at what videos didn't do very well and why they didn't do very well. Maybe it's because I didn't put much effort into editing it. Maybe it's because it's just not what the internet wants right now. Whatever it is, you view it as data, don't view it as failure. Use the lessons that you have learned to make the next one better. The small daily actions that you start to build may feel insignificant now, but I promise you, over months, they create massive results. It's always the small things that compound, you know? It's always the small little 1 hour gym session that you do every other day that turns into bodybuilders, or turns into like you becoming a gym girl, or, you know, the small little steps you do every day to work on your business turns into you being like a very successful business owner. So just remember, the small things that feel insignificant compound over time, and view that as your gratification. The reason why a lot of people aren't consistent is because they rely on instant gratification, not delayed gratification. Start training your brain and start training your mind to focus on what am I going to get in the long run, as opposed to what am I going to get now. That is how you become consistent.
I love that. And that leads us on nicely to the last section of this episode, which are some practical follow-through tips that you can start today to help you basically take everything that the both of us have shared with you today and actually apply it to your life. So number 1 is to use a 5-minute rule. If a habit feels hard, then just commit to it for just 5 minutes and you'll end up doing more than you realize. I feel like as human beings, we tend to just like look at something and we just think, no, I really can't do that. Like I really can't be bothered. But I promise you that when you just put aside just 5 minutes to do that said thing, you will be able to keep on going. Like you'll get the motivation all of a sudden, like the surge. Like let's say you're working on an essay for something, or you want to clean your room, or you want to do some editing, or you have something you need to focus on for your job, and it's the last thing that you want to focus on. Set a timer for 5 minutes, and if you still want to keep on doing it after 5 minutes, keep going. I can promise you that there is a 90% chance that will be the case, and that the only time that you might really just not want to keep going is when you just mentally can't focus on it, and then that's a different story. You can come away from it, you can step back from it, but just applying what you can in that moment. The second tip is to schedule habits on your calendar like appointments and treat them like non-negotiables. It's so funny to me because I remember one of my colleagues in a previous place I was working at had looked over my phone, and I was like checking something on my calendar, and he said to me, "Whoa, Fleur, you are booked and busy." And I went, no, these are not plans. This is just like me putting in like random like little time, like I need to go to the gym at this time, or I need to do this at this time, or like I literally put everything into my calendar that if you look at it, it is just blue with like little things that I need to do. It's actually quite overwhelming crazy. Because then when I look at like an empty calendar, I'm like, oh, this is so like, where are all my plans? But just by the end of the month that it will be full, because I literally put everything into my calendar. And it really helps, because then what will happen is I'll get a notification on my phone when I'm supposed to be like at the gym, or when I'm supposed to be with a friend, or when I'm supposed to be at work. And then that way it kind of like allows my brain to like treat it like it's an appointment, especially when it is things like work, right? You want to make sure you're there on time. So of course those kind of things go in your calendar, but for even like small things like cleaning your room, going to the gym, filming a video, for example, or reading a book, you can put them into your calendar so that you can keep yourself accountable, so that when it does show up on your screen, you can't just close it without feeling the guilt of not doing that said thing and showing up for yourself. The next practical tip is to review your weekly wins and lessons every single Sunday and have that reflection that keeps you accountable. I have this journal which I use on the daily, and although it's not on a Sunday that I do the reflection, at the end of the week it will get me to reflect on my wins, my losses, and just a general like, how am I feeling emotionally? And I think it's very helpful because it allows me to reflect on my week and see it as if it was an entire month or an entire year, and to treat it like a lesson. There is always something that you can learn from a specific week, and I think that sometimes when things aren't going the way we want it to, or we don't think we're being our best version of ourselves, we just seem to like write off the week and like not think about it. But even in those cases, it's like you have something that you can learn from all the things that would have happened to you in that week that you can then make sure you don't do in the future. Or what kind of habits did you do this week? Do you agree with all the habits? Do you agree with how you showed up with yourself? How do you think you can show up for yourself better in the future? So it's very important to hold yourself accountable and just reflect. The next tip is to pair habits with positive reinforcement. So for example, music or rewards or things like that, right? I always say to myself, okay, I can listen to my gym playlist when I'm at the gym, but I do not listen to my gym playlist at any other time. And I love my gym playlist, so that gets me into the gym because it gives me an excuse to listen to that music. And so when you pair something with a reward, like for example, if I go and study this morning, then I can have a coffee or I can get a matcha. It allows your brain to like see it as positive reinforcement, and it gets excited for you to do that said thing so that you can then get the reward faster. So I definitely think that is a good idea. I love my coffee, so whenever I want to study, I'll go to a coffee shop and I'll have my coffee there, and I'll tell myself like, now that I've got my coffee, I really need to like lock in, and it always helps me to lock in. The last tip is to remove friction and make the good habits easy and the bad habits harder. Let's say you are really struggling with screen time. Maybe what you can do is you can have a day where you just scroll on your phone the entire day. I think sometimes when you really want to get rid of a habit, you just need to like completely overwhelm yourself with that habit. Trust me, if you have a day where you are just on your phone all day, like today was one of those days for me where I just like stayed in bed till late. I just emotionally have felt very heavy recently, and I'm so drained and so tired, and I do think I have needed these days where I just have done nothing. But now that I've done it, I'm icked out by my phone, and I'm icked out by social media, and I'm icked out by my thoughts, I'm icked out by my behaviors, I'm icked out by my habits, and I want to lock into the highest version of myself, to the version of me who has all of her habits, who isn't spending time on her phone, who isn't allowing herself to drown in her thoughts and in her overthinking with things that have happened in her life. Like, it's so important that if you want to ick yourself out of a habit you no longer want, you need to overwhelm yourself with that habit. Now, obviously take this with a pinch of salt. If your habit is drinking, smoking, doing anything like that, please do not listen to me, because I do not want you to, I don't know, like that, you know, like I'm talking about little habits like, you know, going on your phone or stuff like that, stuff that if you overwhelmed yourself with it, like nothing bad is going to happen, you're just going to get icked out by it. If it's a serious habit, then get professional help. Like, do not listen to me. I have, you know, I cannot help you on that front, and even if I wanted to, I wouldn't, because I'm not professional and I don't want to give the wrong advice. But if they're like, you know, those
imagine
imagine someone someone listened to this and was like, oh, so she basically said I could just smoke all day and like, you know, drink all day, and then they ended up getting into the hospital or something. Like, I don't want that on my conscience. I'm obviously talking about like bad habits that are like
micro bad habits.
Yeah, like micro, like they're not actually like well, they are detrimental to your health, but not in like a it's going to kill you or a health kind of thing, just more of like a mental thing, like always going on your phone and stuff. It's not good for you. So for those kind of habits, sometimes the best thing that you can do is just have a bed day, like just be in your bed all day, lounge around all day, and I promise you that once you've had a day like that, you will be motivated to like get back into the swing of things. So yeah, that leads us to the end of the episode.
I can't believe this is literally the last episode of 2025. I actually cannot believe it. Like, genuinely, me and Fleur started this podcast. By the time the next episode comes out, it will probably be about a year since we started this podcast, which is like
mad.
Beyond. Yeah, it's like actually incomprehensible to think that we've had a podcast for a year.
And we haven't given up as well.
We haven't even given up. And do you know what's so funny is I was going through one of my old journals the other day, and I sent Flo a picture of something that I wrote in my journal, and it's basically like a list of all the things I wanted to achieve in my life. Bear in mind, I wrote this journal in 2023, I must have been, and on one of it was own a podcast, and on the next page I literally wrote my dream friend. And on this, like, it was actually very bewildering because on this page I wrote down a list of like traits and qualities in which I wanted my idealistic friend to have. Can you imagine, yeah? What, like the following year, 2 years later, I start a podcast with the friend that has all of those traits. What the actual hell? Like, that's just beyond crazy to me. So we're both very, very grateful that you are listening to this episode, you have subscribed to our podcast if you have, or just the fact of being there and supporting us. It means the absolute world to us, beyond which you can even imagine. You are contributing towards our big dream, and we also want to contribute towards yours. So thank you so much. And yeah, I just can't believe, like, wow. So thank you so much for listening, and also we want to wish you guys a very, very happy new year. Yay. We hope that your year 2026 is going to be filled with so many blessings, so much positivity. You are going to achieve all of your goals. Just remember to keep going no matter what. Don't let anybody try and stop you from achieving your goals. Don't let anybody try and laugh at you for having too big of a goals. Don't let anyone try and think that your goals are unrealistic, because only you decide what is realistic, and only you decide what energy you can let in or not let into your energy. Before we end off the episode, as always, me and Fleur both like to say one thing which we're going to be doing this week to help us stay grounded. So Fleur, what are you going to be doing?
I am going to be adding simplicity into my life, and for two main reasons. They're really completely different reasons, but number one, I went to Jane Austen's house with a friend recently, and just seeing how simple life used to be and how you could just romanticize life from the smallest things ever, and the routine of like waking up and practicing the piano and then having breakfast with your family and then having your hobbies throughout the day and going on long walks and like sending letters to loved ones and friends, and you know, like it being the same every single day. And I tend to forget sometimes the importance of simplicity in life. The art of noticing is part of what it means to be a human being. And sometimes we truthfully do forget to notice the beauty of the world, to notice the birds singing in the morning, to notice the light that goes through the trees, to notice all the people and all the faces that you see when you're at work, to notice the smiles and to notice the sad faces of those who have gone through a lot, but you don't know that because you don't know them, to notice the sounds of cars when you're in traffic, to notice the outfit that you're wearing that day and the fact that some people don't have clothes like you, the fact that even if you're wearing makeup, that people don't have the ability to own that kind of thing, the fact that the car you're in is something that somebody might not be able to own, the fact that you can go on a walk whenever you want to because you have the ability to move your body, the fact that you can reflect about your life and journal, the fact that you can see the people you love. And I always forget that, and I always forget the importance of having that simplicity. And the second reason is because my mum is watching this series called The Band of Brothers, which is basically a series about this training company of US soldiers that are plunged into the harsh realities of World War II as they make a treacherous journey across Europe. And I was literally just downstairs having my dinner. Meanwhile, on in the background on the TV, the US soldiers have just found one of the Jewish camps, and they didn't know, because I think the thing is with like the Holocaust is that at the time when the war had just finished, a lot of people didn't actually know what was going on, even soldiers themselves. Like, a lot of people didn't know. And so when they were like faced with the reality of what Hitler had actually done and what had actually happened behind the scenes, it was such a massive shock to them. And you could quite literally see on the faces of the soldiers, they were in despair. Like, they were so shocked. They didn't even know what the camp was for. Like, it's almost like they couldn't even comprehend that something like that would happen, which obviously that is exactly how I feel. But I just kept asking, like, but how did they not know? Like, surely they would have known. Like, surely they would have heard. But then I think about it when I was in history when I was younger, and how they did try, like the Germans did try to like completely hide everything that had happened, and how for years the world just didn't know about what had happened during World War II. And again, just seeing the faces of the soldiers as they walked around just made me realise, like, the fact that this just goes unnoticed in the world, the fact that they didn't know that this was happening, just goes to show how scary the world can be and how caught up in things that, you know, as human beings we can be caught up in without realizing what is actually going on behind the scenes. And I have no idea how this is relating to simplicity.
Well, you
God
think,
forbid.
sorry, I was gonna say, sorry, side note, as you were saying this, you think how much stuff like that happens now that like just goes unnoticed.
Exactly.
Like, it's, and even in terms of like people's personal struggles too, that you just never would have ever have guessed. You know, some people open up and you're like, damn, like I never would have thought that of you. You know what I mean? Like, I never would have thought you'd have been struggling with that or something. You know what I mean? So it just goes to show you how much is really hidden. That obviously a lot more like really catastrophic things. You know what I mean? Stuff like this.
Exactly. Things do really go unnoticed. And it's just one of those things which always really interests me. There's actually a book called 1984, which is written by George Orwell, and it is a landmark novel which explores themes of government oppression, propaganda, and the fight for individual thought. So it's a dystopian novel which basically has the Big Brother vibe of like,
it's really good.
Your thoughts are listened to, and anything that you think they know about, which means that if you are secretly thinking something you shouldn't be, you get caught. That book was really life-changing for me. In fact, I had to multiply put it down because I just couldn't comprehend what was going on in that book. I just couldn't comprehend the things that even the children were watching and classifying as normal. I couldn't comprehend the idea of love being something which is not allowed to happen. I couldn't comprehend the idea of your thoughts being listened to. I couldn't comprehend the idea of having to be a part of something but secretly not wanting to be a part of it, but having to think and feel in a certain way where your thoughts cannot be picked up on. It really opened my eyes up to the world and society, and I do truly believe that anyone and everyone needs to read this book, because the fact that it was written at that time as well is a massive thing, because it, you know, nowadays even a book like that would be quite like life-changing, but even then it's like nobody was talking about that kind of thing. The idea that we are watched, the idea that we are governed, the idea that we are being controlled, the idea that even nowadays we still don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and we'll never know until it happens or until it's shown. And these kind of things really interest me because it's a niche interest almost. I don't think people really speak up a lot about it, and it's sad to me because our life is quite literally being governed by that. But to link this back to simplicity, which, like I said, God forbid, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but when I think about life, I think about how easy it is for us to be caught up on things like trends and social media, and the idea that, you know, the it girl or that kind of aesthetic, the Pilates princess, or, you know, those kind of like trends, how even then we are governed to act and feel in a certain way without us even realizing it. And when you do truthfully just put your phone away and you just go on a bloody walk, you are allowing your brain to realize how controlled you have become by the thoughts and what everybody else is doing, by the trends online, by the way that products are sold. Everything is being marketed in order to make you say yes. Everything is done in order to make you do it. Everything is said in order for you to believe it. Everything is orchestrated for you to be a follower. And if you want to be a leader of your own life, you have to step away from that. And things like the Band of Brothers and going to Jane Austen's house and even 1949, these are the kind of things that awaken me to this idea that I am being trapped and I cannot know until it's too late. You cannot know until it's too late. And I feel like that deserves its entire podcast episode. This is so random to just randomly put at the end of the episode. I'm aware of that. So maybe that is something we can talk about in the future. But what about you, Molly?
No, I love it. I really like it. I think it's really interesting as well. Like, it's a really interesting topic of conversation. And you know what? As I've gotten older, the more I've loved very niche like conversations, ones that don't really get talked about a lot, or ones that just kind of offer like a different way of thinking. You know, like I never would have thought of that before Fleur mentioned it. So even though to you it might seem random, I think it fits really well. So yeah. Sorry, I sound like an interviewer.
It fits really well. So yeah.
It fits really well. Thank you for your insights, Fleur Lika.
That was very insightful. I can definitely see that you've got a degree.
Yeah. Wonder what I could be in. For me, this week to help me stay grounded is really prioritizing my reset, you know, like really resetting. And I know it's something that we're hearing all the time, like reset with me, but I think sometimes a reset is very much needed. And especially now after Christmas, like I just feel very slumped and like slugged. That makes sense. I just kind of want to get back a little bit to normality. I want to take down my Christmas decorations. I want to, which I know sounds so early, like if I had kids and I had my own house, I wouldn't do that. But in my room,
yeah, I'm taking mine down in my room.
Yeah, it's like, do you know what
you need a reset.
Which, like, okay,
you need a reset.
Yeah, exactly. You know, take down my decorations, clean my whole room. I'm not even talking like putting stuff away. I'm talking clean. I'm talking declutter, reorganize, redecorate everything. Like basically have a whole reset, everything, shower, just get sorted for 2026, because I think to me that helps me stay grounded, because it reminds me that even though there's a new year approaching, a year full of endless opportunities, a year full of endless possibilities, also very dauntingly like endless struggles. Like, happy new year, guys. Just enjoy a year of struggles. But like, even though of course naturally like in the year bad stuff will happen, and I think what I find grounding in is that I find grounding in the sense that I know that cleaning my room and getting my stuff organised kind of helps me feel more prepared for whatever life throws at me. So yeah, that's basically going to be me. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening. We really hope you guys enjoyed. We will leave the links to mine and Fleur's YouTube channels in the description box below. We will leave the links to the YouTube or the Spotify, depending on platform you're listening to. And we will also leave the links for the Instagram. Basically all the links you need we'll leave in the description box below. And we want to thank you so much again for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of our amazing 2025 of the Being Grounded podcast. We can't wait to see you guys next year, and we can't wait for you to see all the new exciting things we'll be bringing to you in 2026.
Yeah.
Our rebrand and some other exciting projects we'll be working on. So thank you so much, and
we
hope you have an amazing, beautiful 2026. We'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.